Welcome to the Business Spotlight Series. Again, I'm Rick Plaskett, certified business coach and leadership coach here in Columbus, Ohio. And today my guest is Justin Reinmuth. He is the founder and the president of Techrug, and Techrug is an insurance company for technology service companies. And I think that is a very, very timely topic for us to be covering today, as there's a whole breakthrough and a whole new horizon out there in those areas. Today, we're going to talk to Justin about his business, some of the challenges he's had, and share a peek into what it's really like to build that business and to operate it on a daily basis. If this is your first time on the channel, please be sure to like and subscribe. You'll get future notifications on other interviews just like this. So Justin, welcome and thank you for being here today.
I appreciate it. Good morning, Rick.
Hey, good morning to you too. Hey, give the audience a little background as to how you got here today, and then tell us a little bit about the business. I think it's unique, and I think you do a much better job of defining what that business is and what's the benefit to others. And I'll let you take it over from there.
No, absolutely. So I appreciate it, Rick. It's great to be here. I appreciate you having me. Yeah, so I was fortunate enough. I went to Ohio State University, played soccer 4 years there. And upon graduation, never really had a full-time job because as an athlete, you don't really get that luxury. So the athletic department had helped me get a job down in Dallas, Texas. And so I had moved down there and lived there for several years. And I started off working in a corporate type environment. So I was with a company called Robert Half, and it's a headhunting firm. And so I started out as a sales rep there and then worked my way up to a division director. And our division in Dallas actually was, fortunate enough. I had a team of about, I think, 5 or 6 people. We were #1 in the world in terms of billable hours. So had some success. I think a lot of it I would attribute to kind of the athlete mentality, right? Where I just willing to, push yourself and, just not say no until you can get the desired end result. But, going through that and, I found out that corporate necessarily wasn't for me. So I was fortunate enough to qualify. They called it, again, Reach for the Stars. And I had picked one of the benefits of it after they did the awards show in Las Vegas was that you had a chance to pick, I think it was like one of 100 destinations. And so I went to Hawaii and it was with my girlfriend, now my wife. And I had come back and I quit because on that trip I had realized to myself that, I can do this. And some of the things for me personally in a corporate type environment, I felt like I was a little handcuffed, and so I actually had met a gentleman at Robert Half, and he had known another gentleman, and we had started a company called Infotech. So, and I'll get to why I did this, but I took a pay cut there, right? So I had was making a nice salary at 24, 25 years old and took a pay cut to start my own company. So we did a lot of not only IT staffing placements with that firm, but a lot of project-based business. So we had 2 large clients, ABC Radio, which is a division of Disney, and Verizon. And this was Y2K, when the world was going to blow up. And, it didn't, thank God. But, there was a lot of money being thrown at making sure that the 99 went to 00. But after that happened, a lot of these larger corporations wanted to cut their budgets on that because it was a very expensive time. I mean, the demand was through the roof and the supply necessarily wasn't. And so a lot of these big corporations started doing offshoring development. And so those 2 clients had come to us and said, hey, we can get this for about 1/8 of the cost of what you're charging. What do you want to do? Well, one of my partners had a younger son, and he didn't want to kind of go that direction of spending months overseas. And another one of my partners got into property management and kind of wanted to pursue that. So I really didn't want to, lift the company by myself because I think we all had, we were all specialized in certain areas and brought something to the table. And that's really what had made Infotech successful. So at that point, I had another job opportunity to go work for a larger corporation and do what I was doing at Infotech with that corporation through a guy that I had worked with at Robert Half. And I turned it down. So I wanted to come back to Columbus, Ohio, start a family. and I pursued a career in insurance. So when I started doing that, and I came back here in January of '04, Rick, I personally found just doing kind of generic insurance was it wasn't of that much interest to me. And I was sitting down with a client who's a client still today in downtown Columbus, and he said, "Hey, Justin, you really special," or he had an IT company. He said, "Hey, you have a background in IT and insurance. Is this just something you specialize in?" And Rick, that's really kind of what started in '08. That was the idea that gave me to form and start Techrug, today. So today we work with, as you alluded to, just over 3,000 customers across the United States. Um, we recently in 2024 had become a cover holder in Lloyds of London. Just from a kind of general standpoint, what that means is that we manage that cyber book for a syndicate in Lloyds of London. So we're kind of like our own insurance company. Again, just high level, other than, I don't have 20, 30, 40 million to get an S&P rating. So we write it on Lloyd's paper, and we also use some of the resources today. So I did a little bit of talking here, and want to stop and see if you have any questions or want me to tie up any loose ends.
Yeah, no, that's great. It sounds like, Justin, you are a wired entrepreneur, just from day one, and that's a unique breed. You didn't succumb to institutional learning to become a really good employee. It sounds like that entrepreneurship has been growing underneath, and this is your way of expressing that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think, even though we've had success, I still to this day, and my wife can tell you, when my feet hit the floor, I feel like I'm going to lose everything, or I feel like somebody's just outworking me. So I got to get in the office, and whether that's a good habit or a bad habit, because sometimes it can drive you a little crazy. But that's true on Saturday and Sunday mornings. So it's really tough, I think, as an entrepreneur and somebody that's trying to take a business to kind of strike that work-life balance. I feel like it's teeter-totter. You're either going one way or the other way. It's tough to find that middle ground. So, I think you have to have the right support staff or support system, I should say, around you. Because, there is a lot of stress on the family unit sometimes, if you've got a significant other who has to pick up some of the duties because you can't be there. So that's one of the things that I found, if you're going to do it, is just setting up the roles and responsibility, clearly defining those, and making sure that you stay in that lane.
Justin, if you will allow me just for a moment, may I be your coach? You've changed
Absolutely.
one
No.
word. I think I'll make your life just happy. Okay. No, imagine back when you were a little kid and you're sitting on the teeter-totter and you're trying to balance with the person on the other side. You're spending a lot of energy and a lot of focus trying to get that thing balanced, and it's only balanced for a short period of time, and then it goes out of balance. Work-life balance is just like that. You're going to invest a lot of energy every single day looking at assessing, am I in balance and what do I have to change? And that's actually a whole lot of wasted energy that's going to take away from what's really important to you. I mean, both work and life and family are important to you. So any energy that you're using not focused on those two is kind of wasted energy. Imagine if you changed work-life balance to work-life harmony. And harmony is a word that, if you're back on that teeter-totter and you've got 2-ton Ted on the other side and you're up in the air, hey, he's going to get tired at some point and you're going to come back down. And oh, by the way, while you're up there, you can see a whole lot farther than he can. And this is kind of cool, accepting those that roller coaster of life and accepting where you are. Today, yes, I have to focus on work because I've got these things I've got to get done. Tomorrow, it's family. I've got a little league game that I've got to go to, and that takes priority, and everything else can rest. When you replace balance with harmony, you're now in control. Instead of being reactive, you're proactive. Just imagine that. And as you look at that whole concept of putting things in the right priority, if you look at it from a point of harmony, you're in control. If you look at it from balance, others are taking control of you.
No, it's a great
Ju-
point.
Just
Absolutely.
a thought.
Absolutely.
So let's bring it close. For the viewers, you've mentioned how you've grown and how you got to be where you are today. What's the current ownership structure of Techrug? Are you a sole provider? Do you have outside investors? How are you structured?
Yeah, no, it's a Techrug's an LLC. It's a wholly owned subsidiary of McCormick and Reinmuth, and I own 100% of the company.
Okay, so as at 100%, how would you break down your day? The amount of time that you're working in the business versus on the business, looking at strategy and planning and forward thinking.
There's two things I think that I have to give myself an F on. I think, I too many years, I'm 50 now. I think that I did work in the business and not on the business. And I know it's really kind of hard, maybe again, for some people to think, but like giving up control, when you see an employee, when you're getting employee one, two, three, I mean, the more employees you got to get 15 today and you remove yourself, it gets a little bit easier. But when you see someone that doesn't do it the way you do it, your natural instinct, at least for me, was jump in and do it myself. And that's one of the areas that I've seen Techrug really grow substantially over the last couple of years when I decided to relinquish some of the control and just accept the fact that, and if an employee is going to do it 70 to 80% of the way I would, that's a good employee. The other thing, again, just, leaning not only on that, but, is adapting and adapting social media at an earlier stage. I really, kind of fought that. And I think I should have invested more because 50 growing up in kind of the old school marketing, and I didn't, adopt the SEO and the social media. So those two things I've really focused on the last couple years, and you know what, Rick, it has made a difference in the business.
So let's dig a little deeper in that. You brought it up, subject of marketing, and social media is just one pillar of that. What's something that's working for you right now, and what's something that you should have just cut long ago, but it took you too long to do it?
Yeah, I think I still have a lot of my reps do cold calls, and it's not because cold calling necessarily works anymore. It's because I don't believe that there is a better training system than having to think on your feet. Because when you call that person at 9:30 in the morning, they did not wake up wanting to get a call about switching their technology insurance provider, right? So it's maybe how do I get around the first objection, right? Or what's a way to, if I've got to give the elevator speech in 15 seconds, how do I do that? So, I was a little bit more heavy on the cold call. I still make my staff do it, just not as much, but it's not for the end result. It's more of the teaching of it, if that makes sense.
It
Um,
does.
yeah, I
Mhm.
just don't, for me, I've noticed that the ones that I didn't emphasize, when I say the ones, the employees that I didn't emphasize it as much, they're not growing as fast as the ones that I forced to do it. So, again, I relinquish some of the cold calling. We still do it more of training and, giving the ability to exercise that muscle of thinking on your feet than the
Mhm.
actual outcome of, getting a deal. So that would be one thing that, I switched up a little in terms of marketing. And, listen, like I said, I'm 50 years old and I don't pay attention to, the social media as much. So I've made an investment in younger staff that understands that and knows how to communicate to the 25, 30-year-old, 35-year-old that's going to be either that is the business owner today or will have a significant decision-making role in the years to come.
Super. I'm glad you brought that last piece out. I went to a conference just a few months ago, and the keynote speaker was talking on public speaking, and
Mhm.
more specifically on how to respond to RFPs or how to get your foot in the door. And again, like you, 50 something Gen X, and she was up there saying, if you're trying just one approach, you're all wrong. It says, imagine the world today. Gen X is leading the business, the companies, the corporations. The millennials are the ones that are doing the management. And then the Gen Zers are the ones that are actually doing the research. So if you want to get in front of them, the first thing you've got to do is present something that a Gen Z is going to find and like.
Yeah, and I
Because
think to your
if you're
point, I'm
doing,
I'm, I'm not going to know that, so I need to, and I'll be the first to admit it, that I want to hire my weaknesses. I think
Mhm.
I'm a sales guy that started a business, or I'm sorry, yeah, I wasn't a business guy that all of a sudden had to learn sales. So, with some of the other stuff when it comes to, maybe back office support, for me, one of the key things was hiring the right individual and then letting that individual take control of that. And instead of micromanaging them, just checking in with them and making sure that any, major decisions that might impact the business are run by me. But other than that, just kind of giving them full control to kind of manage that silo.
Super. Now you just pulled me into the next section, but I like it. Let's run with it.
All right.
And when you said hire for your weaknesses,
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about how do you make sure that you are managing and delegating versus abdicating?
Yeah, I think again, earlier, that is a hard thing to do and separate, because for me, it comes back to kind of the control factor, But what I found is that, you know, I could grow the business to the old school way of Justin doing it, and I could only get to a certain level. And then when I realized, okay, if I take that same 12 to 13 hours a day and relinquish 6 hours to other people that I felt confident could make decisions on behalf of the company, then that really was kind of the advent of Techrug taking the next step up. So, we'll have a lot of, just weekly type meetings checking in. We'll have sometimes we'll go have lunch together, and just kind of bounce ideas. So, that's the other thing is I think, if you get the right type of people, I don't have to ask my staff. Sometimes they'll log on a Saturday or Sunday and people say, why do they do that? And I say, they actually have a career, not a job, so they like what they do. I'll catch employees out playing basketball in our building. Some of the younger people, they just take, 3:30 or 4, they'll go out and burn some energy for a half an hour. So, I think that you can hold people accountable, do it in a professional way and not micromanage them. And I think that's what a lot of the employees want.
Absolutely. This is something I shared with you the last time we spoke. I graduated from West Point,
Yeah.
served in the Army for 14 years, um, lived for the 4 years at West Point, lived leadership, and they grilled it into us on and what you just shared is absolutely a thesaurus of what I led every single day is, as a novice or a freshman type of leader or manager, you're out there to control, you're focused on the results. Okay. Then you move up to the teacher. You want to teach them how to get the results. And then ultimately, you become the inspirational head of, I don't know how to get there. I don't think you do either. I know we can do it together. And that knowledge and confidence is what I inspire my people to do, and they find a way to do it. My
Yeah, no,
my
I,
job as a military officer was that teach and that inspire, and it didn't matter how it was going to get done to me. That was the sergeant's job, and when that connection was made, you've got all the confidence in the world because you've got loyal people behind you, and like you said, they have a career and not simply a job. I love that. That was a very inspirational there.
yeah. Well, and by the way, thank you for your service. I've hired some military people, so I understand the challenges you go through and time away from your family. So thank you for that.
It's yeah. Yeah, mine it was a young man's thing. Every time I see a military aircraft fly overhead, I just want to go up and jump out one more time. I've
Yeah.
jumped. I'm a habitual slow learner because I jumped from a good airplane more than once, many
Right.
times more than once, and I still love it and still want to go back and do it again. So
That's great.
sometimes
Well,
it's
thank you
just
again.
slow, but yeah, it's young man thing. I got to this age and all my knees and hips and everything works. So I'm very, very thankful for that. But let's
Right.
get back to you again and let's focus now on the future and look at what's to come next. Where do you see your business 3 to 5 years from now? I mean, you are in technology is just a so rapid advancement and changes. Can you even predict where you want to be in 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, so just to kind of like, backtrack a second on what Techrug does. So just like a doctor would carry medical malpractice if they're performing surgery, a large group of our clients are what they call managed service providers or IT service providers. So they'll go into, a 10-person accounting firm or law firm, and those companies will need the proper security, but they don't want to invest the money in a full-time employee at 80 or 100,000 plus benefits and all that sort of stuff. So what they do is they will reach out to a managed service provider that
Hmm.
has a staff, and it's almost again like a fractional CIO type role, right? But they're in charge of doing the security, buying all the products. So that managed service provider, if they make an error or omission or they're negligent and providing a professional service, and the law firm or the accounting firm sues the MSP, that's why they come to Techrug, is to take out an insurance policy that would properly protect them. So
Hmm.
when I first started this, I think one of the things that really, made Techrug grow at a quicker pace was I would go in and I would go when I was repping different insurance carriers' products, and we would send an application in to the insurance provider. I would either A, find out I don't know that they're necessarily asking the right questions, they're not relevant, they're a
Hmm.
little bit outdated. But secondly, there was no verification, it was all trust based. And so I would think to myself, the way when I would talk to the IT service provider that they might answer a question on application, I don't think is the way that the carrier intended it to. So I thought to myself, if I can verify, then we're both speaking the same language. So in 2015, I went and got with some technical folks and had access to, some higher level. Now we have access to like certified ethical hackers that kind of keep us up to speed. And
Hmm.
that's really where I earned the trust of Lloyds of London was, we were willing to get into the trenches and dig deep and find out stuff that they necessarily maybe didn't have the time to do.
Hmm.
So that's what Techrug does today. So when you asked where are we going in the future, Lloyd's bases our success on not only the premium we write, but what we would call our loss ratio. So for
Hmm.
every dollar we collect, how much of that dollar are they paying out? So for the last, 4 years, we've had a really good run ratio. So the growth of Techrug is actually going to go into a second continent. We'll be in the UK in January and doing some underwriting and have the same model that we have here in the US and the UK. So one of the things that we really focus on, Rick, and I think you have to come up with a business plan that you think works for you, stick to it and execute it. Is that when it comes to insurance, right? To use a car analogy, you know, you have Ford clients, you have Ferrari clients. Ford clients mostly probably just want the car to get to work A to Z. And the Ferrari clients just might care a little bit more about the car. They're going to wash it more. They're going to pay more attention to. And that's really what we decided at Techrug. I didn't want to just be a normal local broker or agent that just wanted to go out and get any IT service provider or managed service provider. I wanted to get the right one. I wanted the one that
Hmm.
was operationally mature, that cared about the money that I invested with attorney drafted templates so that they didn't have to take on certain legal bills. Hiring a full-time risk manager where if they ran into a situation with one of their clients, they could book a time with my risk management team to work through that would save them. So that's really what Techrug was, is, I wanted it to be more of a solution for, again, the operationally mature MSPs. And so, that's really, I guess, paid dividends is, sticking
Hmm.
to that game plan. We had to fire a lot of either A clients or prospects that would come in because year one to year two, they maybe didn't keep up and they weren't doing the right things, or somebody that might come in and apply, for a policy, they just didn't have the right checks and balances in place. And so we just didn't work with them, and so sometimes that's a little bit tough when you're starting off on the business to do because you
Hmm.
got to walk away from the money. but long term it paid dividends because you kind of get that reputation as the gold standard and it separates yourself.
Super, super. So as you're looking to expand in the next very near future, I'm curious. I want to know, Justin, your mindset on your approach to goal setting. And let me set the stage for you. There's goal setting where I know everything I need to do to hit that goal. Is that really a goal then, or is it simply put it on your to-do list and get it done? Versus expanding into a new continent. Do you really know everything that you need to do to make that successful, or are there some gaps there in which you have to grow? And I'm interested, what's your approach to the term goal setting?
Yeah, so I think for myself, right? Like as I make decisions through the day, I've found that, I try not to focus everything on a financial goal, right? For me
Mhm.
personally, what I try to do is through education and other solutions outside of insurance, that is my goal is to find for my clients areas where they have pain points or weaknesses and how outside of insurance do we solve that problem for them. I already know that we're good in insurance, right? It's not me, it's our loss ratio and the claims that are turned in by our IT service providers. But it's when a client comes to me, what are the other pain points within my planet, because I can't control the universe, that I can solve for them. And that's where I found if you can do one, two, three, or four things for that client, your retention ratio is going to increase. We very rarely, Rick, lose a client just solely on price because, okay, we may be, I'm just picking $300, $500, more expensive. Because, I
Mhm.
feel like, being the cheapest is kind of a race to the bottom, you know,
Right.
but when you're dealing with clients and they go, you know what? And they'll ask our competition, but can you solve my pain points or my solve solutions in these other areas, then the answer is no. That's the value of what or what I've created at Techrug is, for me solving, a a total solution for our client and not just one solution. So when you ask me about the goals, I'm constantly looking at how do we continue to satisfy our clients in other areas and other pain points that they have, that we can do it with value. So that's really the goal is, expanding the service offering to our clientele.
So, at the risk of sounding like a complete Neanderthal in the area of technology up
Sure.
against you, I did hear a similarity, and my thought was going towards when I work with my clients, I look at risk management as just a small portion of what we do. And risk management in the technology area, level one is, are you backed up? And everybody says, oh, yeah, yeah, we're backed up. Level two is, well, when's the last time that you tested that? And if something were to crash today, do you at least know where to find the information on what's the first step to do or what's the first phone call to make? And many times there's some uncomfortable silence there. And so what I'm hearing is you kind of do the exact same story of look at, not only how do we protect you, but what happens if some ransomware does get through? How do you become whole again? Not just how are you covered?
Correct. And I think when you talk about uncomfortable, we have to educate our IT service providers to talk to their clients and say, hey, have you taken the time to read the terms and conditions from a vendor like Microsoft or Google? Right. And, good luck negotiating the limitation of liability and the hold harmless indemnification isn't going to happen. So you have to get in there and, like you said, have some uncomfortable conversations and say, okay, we know the max we can get, and I'm just picking this number, is
Mhm.
$1,000 from Microsoft if something goes wrong. So if I sustain $100,000 loss, what can I do to manage, as you alluded to, that risk of the $99,000? So that requires more than just insurance sometimes. And that would be an example of what TechRugs helps for our IT service providers.
Man, that is fabulous. Listen, hey, we have certainly covered a lot of ground today. And for those you watching, I highly encourage you to come back and listen to this a couple more times. I think Justin has given us some great nuggets here on the business and the level of technology and what we have to do to work with that technology to make it a useful tool. So before we wrap up, I'd like to hit a section of rapid fire questions. This is all I'm interested in, Justin, is what's top of your mind for each of them. You ready for
Fire
this?
away.
Super. Justin, what do you consider your key to success?
Um, I would say work ethic and a positive attitude.
Super. Thank you. What's one piece of advice that you would give another business owner?
Again, I would say for me, it was relinquish control and you're not always right.
Great. What's a book that you're reading now or that you've read recently?
Rick, I got to be honest with you. I get an F in that. I don't read a lot of books that are for pleasure. It's mostly business. So I need to find more time.
Okay, I'm going to give you a hint. Last time we spoke, you gave me a book. I went to it, read it through. It was a quick, easy read. You remember which one that was?
I'm going to say Who Moved My Cheese?
No,
Okay.
Die with Zero.
Okay. Yes.
That was a great recommendation, and I really truly appreciate it. It was an affirmation of the way I look at life and what I believe in life. But I wanted to thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Um, so if there was one area in your business that you could improve, and tomorrow morning with a magic wand, it would be exactly where you wanted it to be, what would that area be?
I think that that's a good question, man. The magic wand, if I could improve one area. I think I probably going back to the SEO and stuff, take more of a mutual fund approach to marketing and not a stock approach, right? So look at, as you alluded to, I think the person you said, there's 5 or 6 ways to kind of skin the cat instead of just the one.
Super, super, super. So before we get to the final question, if the audience is watching this today and wants to get in touch with you, or your next best customer is just dying to give you a call and say, sign me up, what's their best way of getting in touch with you?
You could go to the website. It's www.techrug.com. There is a contact us button, which is information@techrug.com. And I would say that's probably the best way.
Super. Thank you. Okay, so here's the final question of the day. Justin, what do you find inspiring?
People that overcome odds, so many people in life, I think, they talk a good game, but, really how we're judged is, execution. And I really admire people that are willing to, go through and put themselves in uncomfortable situations to achieve a desired goal. So that really impresses me.
Super. I love to see people that are willing to step up again. They've been
Yeah.
knocked down. You're going to get knocked down. You're going to get moved around. That's just called life, Murphy's Law, everything else that you can possibly imagine. But your willingness to get back up and be focused on something specific, and that's what drives you. I love it. Absolutely love it. Thank you so much. Hey, Justin, thank you for joining us today and sharing your journey. And thank you to the audience for watching. I mean, Justin has an incredible story. I think he shared a wonderful vision of where he is and where he wants to take that business into the future. And if you were inspired by listening to this today, I welcome you to come back, listen to it again and again. Folks, make it a great day and bye for now.